As I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, you may want to download a copy of my slides. There's some screenshot walkthroughs, some are not screenshot walkthroughs. This is a modification of the workshop that we gave in Islandora Camp, responding to some feedback that we had about how quickly we went. So for some people we go too fast, and for some people we go too slow. So I'm hoping we can all just be a little informal about it and ask questions if we need to. The idea is to carry everyone along together. And if you know more about a topic than one of your colleagues that's having a problem, then a little peer help is much welcome, just to make sure we can all be on the same page together as we tour the starter site. So our objectives today are to develop a mental model for Islandora. So what is it? How do you use it? And where do you go to learn more? Because you will not learn everything about Islandora in this hour and a half. We also want to complete some Drupal-based Islandora configuration tasks using the Portainer demo installation of Islandora. So I'd like to stop here and say, who has the Portainer demo installed? Okay, does anyone not have the Portainer demo? Who has some other version of Starter Site running? Okay, who has not installed anything yet? All right, so you have two options. Oh, sorry, on this slide as well, you'll want to get to the slides because this is a link to sample content that you might want to use. So for those of you who haven't installed it yet, let's go through, do you have Docker Desktop installed or the Portainer? Well, you know, you can also, if you can get online, there's the sandbox, and I'll try and go on and show what's going on here. All right, so why don't we do that? So if you're using the online sandbox, just a warning that people will stomp each other there because it's just the one administrator's account. If you don't have the Portainer installed and you'd like to install it, so we ran the install fests on Tuesday and Thursday, and I know that not everyone can do that. I'm always irritated when I have to install something before I go to a conference. We're also around at lunch hour. We can help you get set up if you'd like to have it. So this is our most up-to-date diagram of what you get in Islandora. What is Islandora? Okay, so Islandora is a Drupal-based digital collections and repository system. It has microservice-based indexing, syncing, and derivative generation systems, and it integrates with several software components such as Fedora Repository, a BlazeGraph Triple Store, Cantaloupe IIIF, and Apache Solr search platform. So you can see here a number of the applications, and they're subdivided by what you do with them. So here on the top, our search and display applications are Solr for indexing, Cantaloupe for image delivery, BlazeGraph for the Triple Store. In the preservation category, we have Fits, Fedora, Fedora Commons, Baggett, and RipRap, and these are all dedicated to preservation. And then we have transcoding, which is really, this is the microservices part of the stack. So you can see we've got Homerus doing media, Houdini images, and Hypercube for OCR. So I will say this is everything that Islandora currently packages, and you have a running installation of this, hopefully, if you have the Portainer running, and you can access them at these URLs. There's a Matamo bug that just got fixed, so you would have to download the latest. But I wanted to start with this because it's the sort of map of Islandora, that there's a lot of components and that they're all sort of stuck together. In the other room, they're going to be learning about how you can remove some of these and configure some of these. Because really, when you're a site administrator in Islandora, you don't touch a lot of these objects at all. You don't touch a lot of this content. So we're not going to do a lot with these today, but you can verify the services exist. So if you were to go to these URLs, and again, if you have the slides open, you can click the link. You can go and see, okay, yes, my Motomo is up for reporting, my Fedora is up. And if those are of interest to you, then you can go and explore them a little bit. But just to say, that's not what this session is about. You can use pieces of this stack or the whole thing, depending on the resources and goals of your institutional environment. And again, that's what I think they'll be learning more about in the next room, is how you can take certain pieces out. For example, in our installation here at UTSC, we don't use Fedora. Most of the time, we are using these systems and interacting with these systems through Drupal. If you are using Islandora as a site administrator, repository manager, you need to put on your Drupal glasses. This is the lens by which we really encounter and experience Islandora. And unless you have a service provider or other labor in the mix to do your configuration, understanding basic Drupal concepts is vital for using Islandora. Investing this time means that you can understand what Islandora is bringing to the table and how Islandora's approach enhances the sustainability and power of the project by staying close to Drupal's way of doing things. And this is to acknowledge the fact that there are a lot of projects that use Drupal as a base, and some kind of try to obfuscate their relationship with Drupal. So they'll override things and they'll try and sort of pretend that they're not using Drupal, and that is not what Islandora does. This might even be something that you're tasked with doing. So as somebody who's administered a lot of Islandora sites, I've definitely made a new admin menu with 4 buttons on it, and that's all that person is going to be able to do. But again, that's not what this workshop is about. It's more about a native understanding of Drupal, and if you need to do that, then you can. But if you're the kind of person who is looking for that to be obfuscated, then you're probably going to need somebody else to do that for you. So we're trying to give you a deeper understanding of the basic components of Islandora as an extensible modular open source digital repository system, not a single off-the-shelf product. So I say that, what is Drupal? It's a popular open source multilingual enterprise level content management system with a vibrant global community with multiple service providers. If you go to Drupal.org, you will find there is an Islandora presence, and Rosie and I, that's our use-a-thon this week, is to try and improve our presence on Drupal.org. Rosie just recently went to DrupalCon, and we had a huge flood of people join the Islandora Slack because the service providers, for example, in Drupal can help you with Islandora because it's so much closer to Drupal than it was in the previous iteration. Currently, there's about 9,500 modules that extend Drupal core and work with Drupal 9+. And Islandora uses and extends Drupal modules and concepts specifically for GLAM use cases. So Drupal's being used for every single thing in the kitchen sink. This is a subset that's really specifically focused on memory institutions and what they need to do. So let's log in and look and see, because when you log into the site, you're going to see exactly what you would see as somebody who installed vanilla Drupal. So I'm going to pop over here and do that myself. So you should be somewhere like this. You can log in. The password, if you are using your local, it's admin password. And I'm just going to show you, if you're using the sandbox, how, yes, it's a very insecure password, thank you. I'm going to go to sandbox.islandora.ca, and you can see it looks identical, but you're actually hitting the live sandbox. It has this little preamble at the beginning, which is a bit different, and somewhere here are the credentials. Learn more about Sandbox and get the credentials on our community wiki. And if you go there, you can see it's admin, and then this much more secure password. But of course, we are putting it on a public. We are putting it on a public server. So again, like, it's always a little bit of an exciting thing to be working with the live sandbox. So I'm going to wait there for a minute. Put up your hand if you're having problems logging in. Yeah.
No problem per se, but I just wanted to make an observation. Last time when I tried to install Islandora locally was in 2019.
Yes.
The Islandora Con.
Yes.
And I wasn't able to, and it's such a pleasure this time around to be able to do it as a non-technical person. That I really appreciate.
I'm going to tell.
And the new approach that you guys are taking.
That's amazing feedback. I'm going to take it right to Nigel Banks, who kind of architected this whole thing, because of course we can't use VMs. For the longest time we had VMs and everybody liked them, and now we can't use them anymore. So we had nothing for a while, like circa 2019. And the first time I did this, 15 minutes and everything was running. I mean, it's still, because it always works off the latest release of Starter Site. So sometimes you're finding bugs and stuff when you're doing it. Like, I think Nigel cut another release even coming up to the camp. But I also agree. I think it's much better. Thank you for that observation. So once you log in, you'd see a screen like this. You are the admin wherever you are. And if you just go up and click the logo, then you'll be on a home page like this. You're an administrator, which means you have the highest possible permissions for your site. This is obviously not what you'd want to give everybody. So when you're building your own site for other people, you're going to want to set up roles and permissions. And so again, if I go to this is my local installation. It's all under people. All the administrative functions are on the top. And you can see I have permissions and roles and role settings. And there's really just a lot of rope here to create as granular of a permission structure as you could ever want. And again, some of you may only ever encounter Islandora as somebody who has a cataloging role or as an editorial role, but this is what Islandora is going to give you out of the box to do something with. As you can see below here, if I go to the right spot, so I'm going to go back to my site, and I'm home. This is sort of circa Islandora legacy. Every content type has its own collection. So there's a selection of demo content with some rough light level cataloging. And then we have this suite of objects that are at the front. If you go up to the left, another way to see all the content that's on the site is to just click this content button. And you're going to see all of these features here, and then you're going to see something that looks like this. So I want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing in these columns. So you have your hyperlinked title, which is the title of your node. You have your content type. I'll talk about that a little bit here, but you can see it's all repository items. The model, these are all pages, so they're all going by the model page. The parents, the children, the media, these are the nodes. We'll talk about all of these concepts, but this is a good overview of some of the main concepts you need to understand to work with Islandora. The author, the status, the last time it was updated, and you've got an action, action categories on the side that allow you to do various things to this content, and then you have things you can do en masse. So if you highlighted a bunch of things, these would all be a series of actions that you're able to do to Islandora content. So let's see, from this page, can you find the audio collection? If I was going to do that, I would go up here to the title and just type audio and then press filter. And that's going to filter to the content that I'm looking for. So this is how you log in and get to the content on your site. And this is one of several ways that you have of finding a piece of content on your site. But I want to talk a little bit about what we say, because content is a bit of a compound and complex concept in Islandora. Drupal has a concept of nodes and content types. So node is the word that's used for any generic term, is a generic term for any piece of content which is defined by a content type. And Islandora is repository item. So what Islandora provides on top of Drupal is a special repository item content type. So it's a content type and it has a bajillion fields. That's technically a bajillion fields. It has many, many fields that are all mapped carefully based on the mod schema, but it's very extensible. But the default piece of content that you come out with is the mod's content type. And so this means that your repository content is designed to be used, managed, viewed, and discovered and stewarded by Islandora features. So that's what that content model is giving you. We had criticism last time. I'm gonna really just nail this home. If you can imagine cookies, just close your eyes for a second like I'm going to do right now and imagine all of the cookies in the universe. And they're all nodes. Cookie cutters are the content types. And Islandora repository item is your GLAM-aware cookie cutter. So this is the cookie cutter that gives you the repository items that you need. There's more cookies ahead. Again, I was hungry. So let's make a piece of repository content together now. So what I'd like to do is have you navigate back to the content menu. So again, you can go to the home page. If you go to the upper left side, I'll just show you right here. If I'm here, I should just be able to go to the top left and hit content. And we're going to hit the add content button. And here you can see these are the content types that are in my installation. If you install Drupal, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get an article content type and a basic page content type. And it's all going to be this theme that you see right now. Theme is the look and feel of the site, is Olivero. So we're using Olivero because we don't have capacity to develop a theme. And Olivero is developed with accessibility in mind. It's like the most accessible theme. So we expect that most people would put their own theme on the site. That's certainly what we do, but this is the theme that we're doing. So you want to select add repository item, and then I'll go through this live. Now we're going to create a piece of content, and if you go into your folder, the sample content folder, do you all have that open? There's a green lobster. I made a green lobster because the red lobster is a cooked lobster. I don't know why, but it's always kind of like, can we have a living lobster? So if you go in, we're going to ask you to put a title in. I chose the very descriptive title of green lobster. The model we're going to select is image. And while you're here, I want to highlight that on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see this bar with options in it. It's going to tell you the last time this content was saved. It's going to tell you who authored it. It's going to create a revision. This means every time you're going to edit this piece of content, you're going to create a new revision for the content, and you can enforce that someone tells you what that change is. So it's optional here. Again, you're an administrator and you can do everything. But I wanted to highlight that this is a really great feature of Drupal that we take advantage of, is the ability to revision your content. So if you're coming from the Islandora legacy world, this is sort of the heart of your audit trail. And again, I'll go through this once more live. Under relationships, you're going to make this a member of a collection, the simple image collection. So here we are. I'm just going to do it live. Add content, repository item, green lobster with a model of image. You can see there's lots of models here, but we're going to find image. And under the Relations tab, we're going to make it a member of the simple image collection. Now I'm going to pause. I'm going to tell you something about this. When we're creating relationships, this is where the concept of parents and children comes from in Islandora. Once something is a member of that collection, if you're in the collection, you'll be able to access it from the Children tab. You'll be able to access it from the Children tab. So the Parent tab, once you've made that relationship, if you go to the Child tab of the parent file, it lists all the collection members. So everything that has a member of relationship to the collection object. And there's different things you can do to children. That's our no context statement that I'm going to make. It's something, when you start talking about the children and the parents, it gets a little weird. But if you're coming from XML, then it's kind of okay. We use this relationship everywhere. So a page, so if you remember from Islandora Legacy, pages were objects, and then they had relationships to the bibliographic record, which was the top level book. We're doing the same thing here. So if you have a paged content, the page is a child of the book record or the newspaper record. So page is a member of the page content, publication issue is a member of a newspaper. Any model can be a member of a compound object. So this allows you to sort of interlink your objects together. You can do things like sort membership order. We're not doing this. I just wanted to kind of bring it up while we're creating our content. You can sort membership order and you can add weight. So there's a couple of different ways that you can change the order in which things appear. So back to creating a piece of content. That's what's going on in that relationship tab. We're going to press save, and you're going to say, but I haven't added my lobster yet, but that's okay. You can add anything else here that you want. We'll talk a little bit more about the descriptive metadata in a minute. But I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom. Again, a very big form, and you can override this form. We won't do that today, but you can do that so you can make it a little easier for your users. So save, and you can see Green Lobster has been created. It's a member of the simple image collection, and you've got your Fedora URI. So just to show you what I was saying about the children, here I am. Every object has these tabs. If I go to the children, I'm going to see Green Lobster is there. That's one of my children. And I can actually just navigate back using that link. And just as we had with the parent object, you can see the tabs across the top. View, edit, children, media, delete, revisions, and then a development tab for people who are developers. Everybody has this on the top. You can see I'm just showing you pictures of other places in our sample content. Everybody's got the same tabs. What can you do with the tabs? The edit is going to bring you back to the metadata for your object. You can manage the children. You can manage media belonging to the object, and you can view and revert versions of a node, versions of your content type. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to add media to the object we just created, which you'll do from the Media tab. So you go to Media, and then you add media. What are media? So Drupal media are special reusable content that wraps a file, or more than one file, and optionally other fields, and those are part of nodes. So Islandora extends Drupal's media, this idea of Drupal's media. So Islandora's media are media of Islandora nodes and are tagged with terms that define their use. This means that your repository content can be flexibly defined and you can manage your media separately when you need to. When you see these paths on the bottom, this is just where you would go and if you want to say, okay, what is this media? Where are my configuration options? I've just put the path on the bottom for you to do that. Back to cookies. So your digital object is enriched by multiple media, which encase the files that are part of your digital object. So it's the M&Ms in my cookie are my media. Drupal uses media as a wrapper for files and optionally other data. and Islandora leverages and extends Drupal media. So again, I'm just trying to show you different pictures of this because this is a bit difficult, or I found it a bit challenging to understand. You've got your node of type repository item. It's full of all of those rich metadata fields. And then you have your media, which are sort of a different type of content that have your files in them and your term, and they have a relationship to the node. Again, I won't go back to Islandora legacy too much, but I noticed that there were a lot of people who were currently maintainers or who are migrating. To me, and I know I'm looking at the developers and then looking away, but it kind of reminds me of data streams. Like it's easy to remember or understand it as a compound object. And again, there's a lot of flexibility, which can make it complex, which is why we're kind of taking it back to the basics. So when you went to add media, you were presented with a big list of all the kinds of media you could add, and we're going to add an image. So if you're adding an image that's not a big, whatever pyramid format image, you're going to use file. You're going to use image in order to upload your file, and you'll be presented with a screen like this. So I'm suggesting that you upload your green lobster, you tag it with the terms original file and service file, and you can see it's automatically made this media of relationship underneath. So you can see media of green lobster. Let's do that live. Media, add media, image, choose my file. Let's find my lobster. My green lobster PNG. I open it. I said this was the service file and the original file. You can see that we have tried in the interface, and I think that this is something that the starter site brings us, to put in a little bit of contextual information where it will help people understand what's going on. So underneath here you can see these are terms that are defined by the Portland Common Data Model use extension, and it tells you that if you tag things as different files, then you're going to do different things. So if you tag something as original file, you're going to create derivatives. Service file will be shown on the nodes. You can pick multiple, because obviously we want to use a file for multiple reasons sometimes. So for example, for me, I have a lot of things that are JPEG that are coming from our campus photographer. We don't have TIFFs. They were natively born digital. So I'm never going to I'm not going to go and transcode that back to a TIFF. I'm just going to keep it, but it is my original file for preservation, so I can tag it as such. We can also check in a bit and see if this is too advanced. So I get the message that green lobster has been created. Okay, so we're going to go back to the content type, and we're going to look at our newly created repository item. So that's what I did. I went back to content. Green lobster's at the top. It's the one I just made. And here I am, green lobster in all its glory. If I had put additional metadata, then additional metadata would appear underneath where I am right now. And let's go to the media tab. We've got 3 files. We put in 1 file and we've gotten 3 files. Why do we have 3 files? These are the derivatives. So if you go way back to that picture I showed you at the beginning, and there was the section on derivatives, and we've got all of these microservices that come in and do various things. These are the default derivatives I'm going to get based on the media use tags that I put on my file when I brought it in. So you can see I've got my green lobster image tagged as an original file and a service file, and when I uploaded it and what its MIME type is. I have a thumbnail image that was generated that's here, and then I have a fits file. It's an XML file. It's going to contain technical metadata for the object. So depending on, it's usually going to be a checksum, everything it scrapes off the file, all that fits information is kept, and so that's really valuable for preservation. So it's keeping an eye on the technical details about that file for me, and it does that automatically. I just want to do a little bit of a review here. When you see the media use fields, so again, as I said, tagging the media use is going to govern the creation of derivatives. So as you can see here, this is another type of a depiction of the content. Again, we have our node of type repository content, and we have an original file media, we have a thumbnail image media, we have service file, extracted text, and fits. So these are the types of derivatives you can get on, say, a page of a book in your repository. And the reason I wanted to show you this is you can see who is making what, right? So the original file, so if I were to put in a TIFF file, that's my original file, then it would make a JPEG, Houdini, ImageMagick. Houdini is the name of the service. ImageMagick would make the JPEG, and the I would get maybe text if I'm using Hypercube, which is my tesseract. So that's your OCR, so that I can get the full text of my image. And then you have the Cray fits, which is making the text XML. That's the fits file. Media use is an example of an Islandora controlled vocabulary. Media use is a reserved vocabulary. You can add to it, but the way it's used, it's for categorizing your media. There are other controlled vocabularies that you see all over the place. So when we saw the models, that was a controlled vocabulary. So you were picking what model your content was. These are all making use of what are called Drupal taxonomies. So Drupal taxonomies consist of vocabularies full of terms that you can define and attach to your content type. And what Islandora gives you are Islandora provided controlled vocabularies that are linked data aware. This means that your repository content can use and modify Islandora vocabularies to author consistent content that adheres to common best practices in libraries for description. And the metadata interest group, for example, does a lot of work to try and bring as much value as possible there. So again, reasonable defaults, but lots of rope in case you need to do something a little bit different. Rope, crayons, I don't know. Rope is too morbid maybe. So inside each vocabulary, so you have taxonomy vocabularies, inside of them are terms, and then the terms have fields. So a common term would be a URI, so a linked data URI that I could use to point to. This is a list of everything that you're getting in Islandora for extra vocabularies. So Islandora gives you all of this descriptive metadata categories that you can use, descriptive metadata taxonomies that you can use, corporate body, so on, temporal subjects. And then it provides a number of them for functions, and these are the ones we've seen already. So Islandora display, which are terms that are used to alter how a repository item is viewed. Islandora media use, which are terms to define how a media object is to be used, so a service file versus a preservation master, for example, and those are preservation terms. So my service file is what I'm showing someone else. My preservation file is what I'm keeping for the long term. And Islandora models, which are terms to describe types of repository objects. So when you were creating your content type and you're appending them, you're linking them into all of these Islandora functions. So we're going to go and modify another repository item. So you created a native repository item. We're going to go and modify another one. And this is going to involve us changing a taxonomy. So I would like you to take a moment with your sample content and the search functions and see if you can get to the repository item Talking Drupal. So to do this part, you're going to need all the files from there. You're going to need all the files from our sample content folder, which everyone hopefully has. Here I am. I'm going to go find it. I know that it is in the audio collection. The other thing you can do is search for Talking Drupal here at the top. So if I search content, it's the top result. Are we here? Everyone there? Talking Drupal? It's a podcast episode that we put into the repository. We've got a little player. This is the default player. There are other players that we can talk about later. It's a member of the audio collection, and it has some linked agents. It has the interviewees and the hosts, and the data was issued, and some other content here, so you can see how that looks, the type. But it doesn't have the publisher. So we want to add a publisher. So let's say I'm going to say Talking Drupal is the publisher. So I'm going to edit the content. I can see all my metadata, and then I have this field called linked agent, which always sounds a little bit sort of CIA to me or something. You know, the linked agents are on the prowl, but all people and corporate things that have to do with your content can be put here. So I go relationship type is publisher, hopefully. There we go, publisher. And I'm going to put in Talking Drupal. And I'm going to try and save it. And it's going to say, no, there are no taxonomy terms matching Talking Drupal. You can change this so that you can create any kind of linked agent you want directly from the form. But this is sort of here by design, because the assumption is that you want to control intellectually the types of agents that are linked within your content. So for example, if I had somebody and they were going to catalog all the papers of Doris McCarthy, I would go and add Doris McCarthy to my linked agent vocabulary so that it was there for my catalogers. So let's go ahead and do that. Taxonomies are under structure and then taxonomy. Structure, taxonomy. It'll look something like this. So that big list I showed you in purple, they're all here. Then we're going to go to list terms. And then you can see all the terms that are there by default. Newfoundland Museum, Memorial University of Newfoundland. We're going to add a term. And the term I'm going to add is talking Drupal. And I'm going to say, which one of these things is it? I'm going to call it an organizational unit. Again, you can change this vocabulary. Only use a subset of the vocabulary, but this is what you're getting kind of out of the box. You can see I can add a lot of other data. So the value here is when you think about controlling authorities for your data, this is very, very powerful. But you don't have to fill in any of it. I'm just going to save it. I created a new term with an absolutely bonkers capitalization, but that's okay, because when I turn my portainer off, it's going to go away, and when it comes back, it will be fresh and clean. So let's go over now to our content. So again, I'm going to go back to the site, to Talking Drupal. I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to try and do the same thing. So I'm going down to linked agent. I'm going to say, and again, what I start doing is I just start typing, because it'll bring me to it'll bring you to the first letter. Yeah, there it is. So now it's appearing. I've started typing it. 106 is called the taxonomy ID. So this is sometimes relevant. This is the kind of thing I see happen a lot when you create two taxonomy terms. So if you're letting people create taxonomy terms, sometimes two people will create the same one, and then you'll get two term IDs. That's the kind of thing that you want to control with your workflows a little bit. But there are merge functions for taxonomy, so you can merge terms together if you have terms that are created by several different people at a similar time. So we're going to save it, and now, thank you. Now I've got Talking Drupal under Publisher. So now I'm going to ask everybody to add a thumbnail image and a transcript. So those are inside the sample content folder. Just take a swing at it, see if you can add the thumbnail image and transcript to the Talking Media podcast with what we've learned so far. I'm going to very quickly try and go through this, or am I? Let's see. I think I have to download the files. Bear with me. I thought I had them all locally. I'm going to specifically add the VTT file because I'd like you guys to see how that shows. Oh, it's transcript, it's not service file, I apologize. So if I've done this correctly, you can see here that was the JPEG that was showing up for you. Okay. Content. Talking Drupal was updated. And when I play this, let's see what happens. Can you see? Can you see how this is appearing at the top? We love trouble, is what the auto, anyways. That was a stream-generated VTT file. So I would encourage you to come to the demo and we'll show you the player that we're using, which is Able Player, and we have a PR against Starter Site, which is a much sort of more attractive player, but this is your default that you can get when you add that media in. Okay, I'm gonna stop for a second. It's quiz time. What are content types? Are they templates defining the types of nodes that are created, nodes that create repository item content types, or kinds of files like images, documents, or PDFs? A, B, or C? A, there we go, awesome. What are media? Audio and video files, wrappers for one or more files that are part of your repository system, or a special kind of repository item? A, B, or C? B, there we go, that's right. And what are taxonomies? Lists of terms used to support functions for repository items like transcoding, controlled vocabulary is used by Islandora to support cataloging, or both A and C? Is it A, B, or C? C, that's right. So that's the very fundamental thing I think that you need to know how to do this. So this is where we go into, we've got a little bit more time, I think. I think we're going to go for another 15 or 20 minutes. So Drupal views are displays that filter database content, and you can display things as lists, posts, galleries, labels, tables, maps, etc. And Islandora's views are used largely to power collection and search views. And this means that the views allow your repository content to be navigated and searched reliably from different areas of your site. So I'm going to ask you to go back to the home page, and when you mouse over, you're going to see a little pencil on the right-hand side. There's going to be a drop-down that says Edit View. And you'll get into something that looks like this. So let me just show you what that looks like. Get back to the home page, top level collections, I go over and I hit Edit View. There are a lot of functions here. So the config goes quite deep, you get some default views, and there's a lot of power here, but it's not something that we're going to go over in a lot of detail today. Suffice to say, if you want to do something, you can usually find a way to do it, and we're seeking reasonable defaults for you in other cases. And if you click on any of these things, like that's a field that's being exposed, you can see I have additional configuration that's available here. So one thing you can get in the Islandora community is if you want to change your views, the Islandora community can usually tell you about a good maintainable way to do that, because we're all doing very similar things. The thing I want to highlight here, so I'm going to cancel out, I'm not going to do anything there. The thing I want to point out are these things at the top, the displays. We've got page and we've got block. That means I'm sort of writing one query, I'm asking certain fields to be brought back and displayed in a certain way, and I have these two displays for the content that I've filtered to. One is a page, it has a path, and I can put it anywhere in my site, and one of them is a block. Blocks are the other thing that I think it's important to know about if you're kind of going into Islandora. Blocks are basically boxes of content, it's just as it sounds, which are rendered into an area or region of a web page. Islandora blocks define viewers and present search functionality. That's largely what we're offering here. And this means your repository content can be presented flexibly in a web page depending on your theme. So the block layout is available under Structure, Block Layout. Looks like this. Many of the pages look exactly the same. This also means that as you get more into Islandora, you get more used to where you're supposed to see things. So one of the things I really like about the way that Islandora has gone is that you really should know Drupal, but the more invested you get, the more it becomes easier to transfer those ideas into other screens that you're seeing. And so you get to the point where, for me, I feel like I've been with Drupal for a long time, and I've never been a software developer, but I can build a site, I can do an awful lot, because I've spent a little bit of time learning about some of the core Drupal concepts. You can also add custom blocks that just contain anything your heart desires. So we have another number of blocks that are provided. There's system blocks, modules that you install will provide blocks. But there's also a custom block library. I can make a block that says anything I want, and I can put it on any page that I want in my site. The other thing I wanted to just highlight about the block layout, and again, there are many themes that you can use in Drupal, and we're just using the default one, is they'll all have some kind of a demonstrate block regions button like this, which tells you what the regions are of your theme. So when you think, where can I put content for an end user? How's it going to respond? You can always go into your theme, hit the block demonstration, and see all of the various areas that are available to you. So in short, views and blocks often work together to govern how you sort and display your cookies, to go back to our cookies. Or they let you control how other people request cookies through things like search views. So one of the views that you can use here is one of the views that's available to you is the advanced search view. I'm going back to my site here and I just want to show you something. So here we know this is a view and it's a view block. So it's a block that's been placed on the region of the page and it's been configured to show on the first page. So if I were to go structure, blocks, and then I'm going to go to content, which is the region I know this is in. And I'm going to see this right here, it says collection members. It's coming from a view, so in parentheses it says it's from views. And if I hit configure there, I'm going to see all of these different things that I can do to control how that appears. Now if I do a search, and why don't you search for island? That'll give you some things back. This is our default search view that's provided. So you've got your advanced search features and you have a number of filters, and this is what happens if you do a basic general search. So both the general, everything that you see on the starter site is powered by a module called the advanced search module, and actually Kyle did a huge amount of work on it here. It was originally developed by Danny as a submodule, and then we've abstracted it and added a lot of additional features to it. So it supports, if you use the search bar at the top here, which again is a block you can put anywhere in your site, you can do an extended dismax query, which is a kind of fuzzy searching to give people more of that experience that they're used to having. There's a bunch of, it's all coming directly from Apache Solr, which is one of the underlying application that we're using to power search, and it's heavily configurable. But just to say, this also, it's a search, or sorry, it's a view. So if you click edit view, this is how the default Solr index content search works. The other place that you'll see a search powered view on the site is under collections. And again, this has a lot to do with your philosophy of searching. For us, and I think that this is common of a lot of applications now, I expect to be able to see facets when I go to the collection page. I want to know what those facets are right away. So we do that using the search functions. So let's go to a collection. Let's go to the document collection. This, you can see it's a very similar search with a couple of notable differences. So the first one doesn't have to do with views, it just has to do with the module. You can search within this collection from this page. So if I just want to search the content that's here, this is where I would do it. And if I have sub-collections, then I can check on and off this sub-collections box to search content. And once again, if I edit the view, it's the index default Solr content index. But I'd like you to notice the things around the upper left here. Remember how I pointed to the displays before? We can have all kinds of displays. We have block displays, we have page displays. And in fact, if it's okay, since we're getting closer to the end, I'll show you this. We have all these other types of displays we can provide. So you've got data export, so if you want to let people export a CSV of everything that they see in the site, then that's where you would configure that. If you want to generate a feed because, I don't know, you missed the early 2000s, no, feeds are good. If you want to generate a feed, you can put it there, or a REST export. There's all kinds of things here, a geolocation layer, there's a lot of different formats, and different modules will give you different export formats as well. But what I wanted to point out is these two displays. One of them is the search page, and one of them is the collection members. That's a little bit hard to see, but can you see it up on the top left there? So what I'd like for us to do is just make a little modification to a view. When you search something, and when you are at a collection level, you're seeing the same search view. And if you're doing a general search of all the content in your site, it makes sense to know what collection an object is coming from. So if I do a search, I want to know what collection that's in. But if you're in a collection already, that's redundant information. That's sort of a bad user interface because you know you're in the collection already. So the question I have is, how can we modify that so that in one display, I'm showing the collection membership, which is the search result display, and in the other display, I'm not. And that's what I'd like to do with you now. So we go over to collection members, and I'm going to look at all these fields. These are all the fields that I'm exposing. They're all coming from Solr, and that's why they're all prefixed with content data source. And you can see here, content data source, member of, content, title, indexed field member of, which is a crazy name, but that is the title of the collection. I'm going to configure this field. So on the top it says for all displays. I don't want to do this for all displays because I don't want to change every display. I just want to change that one display. So for this particular block, I'm going to remove it. Then I'm going to press save. And now when I go down, you can see I no longer have the collection membership when I'm on the collection page. And that's the basic way that you're going to configure the way that those search results appear for different people. It's just by adding and changing fields and changing the displays. Okay, true or false? Views can be blocks or pages. True, that's right. Blocks can only be generated by views. True or false? This is just the beginning, right? So where can you go to learn more about Drupal? It's a rich open source community in its own right with an annual conference and lots of training material that's available online. Forums like the Drupal Stack Exchange are great places to find and share information. And because Drupal is so heavily used, there are lots of tutorials on things like LinkedIn Learning and YouTube, including on the Islandora channel. Rosie does also a Drupal 101 that's a bit faster paced if you want to learn more. You can also ask questions on our Islandora list. I love when I see a Drupal question because it's a question I can answer. I don't know about ILDC, but if you need to know what module is used to merge taxonomy terms, I have the answer for you. Stay version aware though as you go. So as you know, we've all moved into this semver, semantic versioning world. Nothing has a version any longer, ever, I guess. That's just something that happened before and is gone now, like Twitter. So if you're looking at things that are Drupal 7 and earlier, they're probably not going to work for you. So as you're looking through modules and training modules, try and stay away from Drupal 7 and really stay 8 forward because that's where you're going to get stuff that is more relevant for modern Islandora. There's lots more to say, but I'd like to stop it there and just see if there's any questions and maybe spend a little time playing with putting content into the repository. And again, if you want to ask questions, Kyle's here and he can answer much harder questions than I can. But I appreciate your attention and I hope this is okay. And if you're comfortable providing feedback when the form goes out, it's difficult to know how to do these intro to Islandora sessions, like what's the right way to tune them. So last time we went too fast, so this time we went too slow. You can't please everybody, but I'm open to feedback. I don't regularly instruct, so I appreciate any feedback you can give me, and I'm going to stop there and say thank you for listening.